Hello again to another Agricolor React, and today we will be watching Europe can replace US trade. Here's how. And I believe, yes, Europe can do that with all the tariffs and stuff like that. So let's just jump into it and see what do they think. And
do you remember the good old days of transatlantic trade? Well, it's not all over just yet, but maybe it's time to look for some alternative trade partners.
Yeah. Yeah. South America, Africa, just the rest of the world, Canada.
The European Union is the world's trade champion. In 2023 alone, it racked up 7.6 trillion euros in trade, which is 16% of the global trade share, more than the US and China. And that's by a very good margin. And for all the criticism the EU gets, trade is something it does really well. That's thanks in part to the single market, probably the EU's biggest achievement after peace, and a growing network of 130 trade deals with countries across the entire world. Unsurprisingly, the EU does most trade with the US and China. But what is surprising is that there's no free trade deal with either, yet. Seeing the US at the top is especially worrying, especially with Trump flipping the tariff switch on and off, hitting European economies very hard. So in this video, we'll look at the EU's trade with the US and how we could diversify or even replace it. And yes, we think it's possible.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised that it would be possible. It's not like the European Union is cutting off themselves from all the trade partners and stuff like that. It's more about the fact that America is just trying to do something to help their own economy with actually ruining the whole trade deals and trade partnerships and stuff like that all around the world, not only European Union. So yeah, this was looking like it's an old long ad. Yes, it is. So I shall see you soon. Alright, I'm back, and I just go back into the video because I already don't have anything else to add. So there you go.
In 2023, the US was the EU's biggest trading partner, accounting for about 17% of total trade. Goods and services flowed both ways, totaling 1.6 trillion euros. That's billions crossing the Atlantic every day. The EU exported 823 billion euros to the US, while the US sent 774 billion euros.
Actually, no, it's not surprising. I for some reason I was just thinking that we would be importing more from America, but seems like not. So maybe it is the fact that. So this is kind of explains why the Trump tariff would kind of hit EU so big, because we exporting more, so there would be tariffs on all that money. But then still, it's not that big. I mean, there's like 50 million difference around.
And just 5 sectors make up half of all the EU-US trade, led by medicines, pharmaceuticals, and of course, cars. And here's the problem. These sectors are already hit hard by tariffs. Trump has slapped on a 10% tariff across the board and a massive 25% on motor vehicles. This is some serious tough love for Germany, who is the EU's biggest exporter to the US. They are definitely feeling the pain. And it could get even worse. In 3 months, the US might reinstate a 20% tariff on all goods. And the Kiel Institute ran a worst-case scenario. What if the US imposed 25% tariffs across the board and the EU hit back with the same? The result? A 17.5% drop in EU exports to the US and a 0.5% hit to the EU's GDP. Ouch. Now that's the extreme case, but let's run with it. A 17.5 drop means the EU would need to replace around 144 billion euros in lost exports. And can the EU fill that gap? We think so. And it starts with new trade partners. India really stands out among the many deals in the works, a massive country with huge potential. For example, India currently imposes import tariffs exceeding 100% on cars. That's crazy, right? But under the proposed free trade agreement, these tariffs could gradually be reduced to as low as 10% for European-made vehicles, opening up a significant opportunity for EU car manufacturers. And I'm sure Germany would absolutely love this. And the projections love it too, suggesting that total trade volume could rise to approximately 167 billion euros by 2026. This means India's exports to the EU could rise to 93 billion euros, and EU exports to India to 75 billion euros. And of course, this could help offset part of the 144 billion euro trade loss from the US, bringing that net loss down to around 130 billion euros. As for where things stand today, both the EU and India are aiming to finalize the agreement by the end of this year. And then there's another massive trade deal in the making, Mercosur, a pact between the EU and Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Studies estimate this could boost trade flows between the EU and Mercosur by 37%. And this time, it's not just about cars. Pharma would benefit too, with Mercosur's 14% tariffs on medicines set to be phased out completely, giving EU companies better access to over 260 million people. Projections suggest that the total trade volume could rise to around 126 billion euros by 2026. This means Mercosur exports to the EU would jump to around 49 billion euros and EU exports to Mercosur to around 77 billion euros. That would help offset the potential 144 billion euro trade loss from the US even further, bringing the net loss to around 109 billion euros. Now, we don't have time to dive into every single trade deal, but if we zoom out and just look at the potential boost to EU exports, here's what it could add up to. For Mexico though, there are no official estimates, so we made a conservative guess, a 20% export boost, or in other words, 10 billion euros. But here's the problem. Even if all of these new trade deals get implemented, and that is a massive if, I'm looking at you, European farmers, they still don't make up for the full 144 billion euro hit that a full-on trade war with the US would cause. In total, we still be looking at a shortfall of around 53 billion euros. Ouch. But before we look at even more countermeasures, a quick shout out to the people who made this video happen. Our amazing Patreon supporters and YouTube members. Each week our EU Made Simple members of parliament...
But now I'm kind of thinking now about this, like basically, if we're losing that just because it was business with America, I'm trying to think now, how much business does America loses? Because they have those tariffs on everyone. So every country out there is just gonna be, they're losing all the businesses from them, not just with the European Union, but all of the countries around. So it's like, how much trillions of dollars America is losing because of it? I know there's probably some estimates and stuff. Mostly they're talking about the tax cuts and stuff like that for the billionaires and all that, but I don't think I've seen how much America is going to lose on all of those tariffs when they basically, all of the trades and stuff like that are gonna be lost because of those tariffs with other countries. Because obviously they're exporting a lot too to different countries, they're importing too, but you know, I'm just wondering.
Their favorite video idea on Discord, and this time they picked this very video as their winner. How can the EU replace the potential trade lost with the US? So if you'd like to have a voice in what we make and support independent EU-focused journalism, consider joining us on Patreon. Your support truly means the world to us. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. So how can the EU replace those potential 53 billion euros in lost trade? And some of you are probably shouting, China! And fair enough. EU-China trade hits a massive 739 billion euros in 2023.
Oh, that is a lot.
And strikingly, there's no trade deal yet. And with a Europe-China summit coming up in this July, the relationship could truly deepen. But here's the issue. We risk falling into the same trap as with the US. Too much reliance on one unpredictable partner. And let's be honest, China's stance on Russia and Taiwan could shake the entire relationship overnight. So no, we really think there's a better option. You see, the EU has an ace up its sleeve. It's called the single market. With more than 450 million citizens and 22 million companies from 27 member states. It is the largest common market in the world. I mean, look at this. Compared to the US, the EU has 110 million more people. But so far, it hasn't really mattered. As what does the US do best? They actually fully leverage their internal market. Smooth, frictionless, high-performing. Now you might say, don't we have the same thing?
No.
And here we would have to disagree with you. No, we don't. Our single market is far from complete, and it's costing us hundreds of billions of euros of lost potential every year. Let us explain what we mean. The single market is based on 4 freedoms: free movement of goods, services, capital, and people. We've more or less nailed goods. They can cross borders with ease. But the rest, honestly, we kind of suck. Take the second freedom, services. A plumber certified in Poland might not be allowed to work in Belgium without getting
what about movement of people?
Even if they've been doing the job for 20 years. On top of EU rules, every country also has its own rules, standards, and red tape. In the US, it's different. A plumber from Ohio can work in Florida with minimal recertification and red tape required. It's not perfect either, but it's a way more unified market. Now take the third...
No, I'm just gonna say something in regards of that, because honestly, yeah, I know the EU is not there. Like, Poland is part of EU now for 21 years. So that seems like a lot, but it's not, honestly. EU exists since, well, 1950... 40-something, 50-something? Can't remember exactly now. America exists in, like, now have the 250 years of existence coming up. Is this something like that? So, as one country, so one market as well, and things like that. So this is kind of understandable why. I'm guessing with time, EU and all that, what he's talking now about the services and stuff, it's gonna be working like that now too. And still, it is easier now than it was, like, I don't know, 50 years ago, or I don't know, 30 years ago, like for Polish plumber before, or like, I wouldn't be considering moving from Poland. I'm too lazy for stuff like that, you know? I'm not living in Poland mostly because I didn't really have to do a lot of work to move to Ireland or Spain when I was before. Yeah, I did sign contract for work, seasonal work in Spain, and then I came from Spain to Ireland, but I didn't have to fill up loads of like paperwork, like let's say I know how much it is because Eric is not from EU country, and he have to apply for his residency permits every 5 years on the basis of being married to me. So we have to apply for that, and we have to fill up a lot of paperwork, you know, like stating that we are married, that I'm working, that that mostly it's about me proving that I can actually, if something happens, I can actually provide for him. So it's a lot of work, not. You know, like, I'm okay because I understand why is that in place. But because of that, I think if not the fact that Poland did join EU, I wouldn't be living in Ireland, because I wouldn't probably even dream about going out from my country of birth to work somewhere when I have to prove that I have good language. Mind, my English was not as it is now years when I was moving to Ireland. It was absolutely poor. It was very terrible. And then on top of that, well, we have to fill up all the paperwork to be able to actually work and live in the country that I wanted to move to. No, I probably wouldn't do it. So, movement of people, I think it's much easier in EU, but I wonder if he's gonna actually pick up something on that and point out why isn't that good. I just wonder, because with the services I do agree, but I think the comparison between American market and the single market in Europe, it's kind of unfair because of the length of existence of EU.
Freedom, capital. A startup in Portugal trying to raise investment from Dutch or Austrian investors may struggle because every country has different rules for taxation, bankruptcy, and investor
but for this,
protection.
we just really,
simply no
for stuff like that, you really need a lot of time and willingness of people. And there's a lot of EU skeptics in European Union. There is a lot of people like that. With the rise of nationalism pretty much all over the world, I'm not surprised there's a lot of people that they don't like EU and the fact what that stands for. So, no, I'm not saying I'm with them, because I'm not. So, yeah.
No unified framework for venture capital, and legal uncertainty makes cross-border funding harder than it should be. This means that promising businesses often scale within one country, not across Europe. Now compare that to the United States. A startup in Ohio can raise money from investors in California,
yes,
Texas,
but
or
again,
New York.
It's a one country, not... I know it's single market, we're talking about single market and US market, like in thing, but it's still one country and coalition of multiple countries. So that doesn't really exist that long in a scale of whole history and stuff.
All under one federal system, with uniform laws, common investor protections, and a single bankruptcy code.
I think
it's a huge...
I think just basically with time, we just need a few decades. The same way what I was saying last week in previous videos about building a European army. We just need time for that. And the fact is that we had that time to build an army, but for so many years, America was saying, you don't need it, we're gonna be there for you. And the same thing about the trade. We just, for so many years, America and Europe had in such a great trade, what you call them? Trade and stuff like that there was no need for anything like that. So, there you go.
Huge reason why American companies grow fast and scale so big. And then there's the fourth freedom. People. In theory, EU citizens can live and work anywhere in the Union. In practice, it's often slow, expensive, and bureaucratic.
How?
Qualifications don't always transfer, and national rules still get in the way every single time.
Yeah, the qualifications, I can agree with that. I don't have much of qualifications if it comes to I'm not highly skilled in anything. So my qualifications would work pretty much anywhere as a low-skilled worker. I'm not afraid to say it. I am a low-skilled worker. So yeah, so basically, but the bureaucratic, I don't understand what is this going about, because honestly, did it change over the years since I moved to Ireland? Because honestly, I remember when I came to Ireland, I literally just went to a place to make PPS number. I just needed like an address from the place, a letter from my landlord that I'm living and renting there, for the address proof, and that was pretty much all, and just my Polish ID, and that was pretty much all that I had to do. So I'm not entirely sure what the bureaucratic problems are here that he mentions.
Someone from Illinois can move to Florida, rent an apartment, get a job, sign up for healthcare, and vote in elections, all without dealing with immigration paperwork and minimal qualification.
With the elections, I'm not sure if it's that much of importance. I can't vote in the local elections in Ireland, I can't vote in the national elections in Ireland, I can vote for EU representatives from Ireland. And obviously, as a Polish citizen, I have right to vote in the Polish elections, so they are organized around Ireland as well. And they're actually coming up. Well, I have to remember to register. Yeah, but I'm kind of confused about
Mobility is simply built into the system. And
we have ad now. So I've just been talking and stopping, and I could have just waited for the ad. I keep talking. So yeah, I wonder what it is that they think that the movement of people is the bureaucratic. The qualifications, I do understand where they're coming with, but just in general, just the movement of people, I think that he should have kind of think more about the fact that there's so many languages in Europe as well, and to be able to organize anything in those countries, you kind of have to know the local language, or at least English. In many cases, English is not helping you either, so you need like help with a translator. There's people. I'm not sure if they're still working like that, but I'm presuming there's some people too. But when I came to Ireland, there was plenty of Polish people, but basically they were renting their services to just go to different authorities with that person. Like I could, if my English wasn't that good, but I had some friends come here, so they kind of helped me up with that. But basically, if you were very stuck, you could have just paid someone to go with you, and they would help you with filling up all the paperwork and stuff. So yeah, I'm just kind of confused about that bureaucratic problem with the transfer and stuff.
And in all honesty, even if we rewind back to goods, we are not 100% harmonized. Member states can still add national rules on top of EU standards. For example, nutritional labels vary. France uses Nutri-Score, while others prefer traffic light systems or their own formats. And let's not get started on language requirements. Sweden, for example, requires product labels to be in Swedish. In the US, this problem does not exist. It's all the same. In reality, the free movement of people, goods, services, capital, and even data, as promised in the EU treaties, is often more wishful thinking than everyday reality. And that comes at a cost, a massive cost. Estimates show this lack of integration could be costing the EU up to 1.1 trillion euros per year. Yes, you heard that right.
Wow.
1.1 trillion euros every single
That is
year.
a lot.
A
2019,
report broke it down. Removing just 50%.
Yeah, but look at this now. If Trump didn't win the elections in America and then start imposing all the tariffs and stuff like that, no one really would talk about that because that money would be just coming from America, isn't it?
Barriers to free circulation of services, that's 279 billion euros right there. Clearing the remaining hurdles for goods, 300 billion euros. A fully integrated digital single market, 450 billion euros. And just switching fully to e-procurement could add 50 billion euros more. Now, if we added that 1.1 trillion euros to the mix to help offset trade losses from the US,
we'll be on top.
That 144 billion euro gap looks tiny now, doesn't it? Now, does this mean we should turn inward and go full out Europe first? No, not at all. There's huge value in striking trade deals around the world, including with the US if they're open.
I'm actually thinking that getting into just even within European Union, just going into your own thing, just dealing with just countries from European Union and the free market, it would be a massive mistake because we can't really do everything. And that's one thing. And I think globalization is the future. Like, maybe I'm reading too much science fiction, like really far out in the time when basically there's like, I did watch Star Trek and that Federation there and kind of but I wouldn't know that much about it. But just basically stuff that it's just like, a common thing that basically there's systems there, like the interplanetary systems and stuff like that. That's what our future gonna be in hundreds of years, if not a few thousands maybe, but we just have to start with the small steps. And the European Union market as one thing, that's gonna be one, but we can't just be focusing just on that. There have to be other work with the other countries in the same globe as well. So
into it. But here's the thing, we need to get our house in order too. And the top priority has to be finishing the single market. Capital Markets Union, yes. Energy Union, absolutely. Defense Union, long overdue.
Yep.
Digital Markets Union, let's finally complete it. And Services Market Reform, that one alone could transform the entire EU economy. We need to get serious about all of these, and fast, because completing the single market will have a far bigger impact on our GDP, jobs, and everyday life than spending years trying to make a trade deal with someone like Trump, who frankly doesn't seem at all that interested. The EU has 100 million people more than the US. Let's make it count and finally finish our single market. Let me know what you think in the comments. And Germany is actually starting to get more serious about the single market. Check out their new coalition plans right here. And to support us further, consider joining us on Patreon and vote on video ideas every week. Thank you so much to our presidents, Jan Schauke, Christian Peter, AGVD, BJ Unite Europe.
Alright, that's just thinking. Okay, so that was a very good video, and I was talking over it like a lot. So, and I see myself in those glasses. I look like a fly or something. Isn't it? Yeah, so, what do you think about it? I think going into more unified single market in European Union, it's a good way to do it, but we shouldn't just be, we should actually think about going into trade treaties with different countries in the world as well, not only America. So yeah. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and I see you tomorrow. Bye.